Hi, I'm Sarah Factor, your host of Not Just in the World of Beauty, a podcast brought to you by Aveda. You know, I work at Aveda, and I've met a lot of amazing people, and I'm here to share their stories and unique experiences. I am super excited for today's episode. We are talking all about aroma, and I have two special guests with me today, and I'm actually going to let you both introduce yourselves, so I'll start with you, Guy.
Hi, so my name's Guy Vincent. I'm the perfumer here at Aveda. I've been here around about just over 8 years, and I work as the in-house or head of perfume.
Awesome. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Kate Rosso. I'm the associate Pure-Fumer, which is kind of like a junior perfumer role. I've been here for almost 4 years, coming up on 4 years in November. So I'm really excited to talk about aroma today.
Awesome. Let's actually talk about what the word perfumer means and how do you define that as your role, Guy?
So a perfumer is someone who makes perfumes to go into products. They can be a variety of different products. Not a lot of people know exactly what that means.
Right.
And so I like to describe it as I make products smell nice. So anything to do with the product itself, whether it be a hair care, candle, body product, it's the formulation of the specific aromatic parts of that is a perfumer. It's known at Aveda as Pure-Fume because of the naturally derived ingredients that we use. So perfumer, Pure-Fume, it's a play on words, but effectively a perfumer is someone who creates the aromatic identity of products.
Awesome. I have had to add that word to my spell check.
Yeah.
But
Me
it does.
too.
It's so applicable to Aveda. So how did you both get into your roles? What's been your path? Guy, why don't you share how you got here?
Well, mine's an unconventional path to becoming a perfumer. I started out a long time ago. I studied and worked as a brewer.
Really? Like beer?
Yeah, making beer.
Interesting.
And that has a lot of olfactory and taste skills, as you can imagine. And I got to a stage when I was about 21, 22, when I realised I'd be a very old and sick fellow if I kept doing that as a job because I really like to drink far too much. And I went off and studied natural medicine. I was very interested in medicine.
It's an interesting pivot.
Yeah, it is. I'd been body aware and health conscious, and I was fascinated with biology and biochemistry and some of the things I studied in brewing. And so I embarked on a path of natural medicine, bodywork, herbal medicine, and one of the units in the class that I was studying was aromatherapy. It was a real eureka moment for me at that stage where I thought, here's something that's really good for you, a modality that's really good for you, and it smells great. And I was fascinated about putting the essential oils and these ingredients together for health and well-being. I got more and more involved in that, and I wanted to know more and more where these ingredients came from and how to put them together. And that took me on a path to teach myself perfumery. And I worked with different people around the world. I started out in my native Australia, and there isn't really any perfume industry in Australia.
Really?
No, not really. It's all centered in Asia, Europe, and here in the United States.
Move.
Well, it got to a stage where I thought I could develop something or I could move to try and learn more. Yes, I did move. I packed up everything I owned and sold it all and put a pack on my back and travelled. And then went to different places to study with different perfumers and to learn about the ingredients, where they come from. Chasing benzoin gum in Laos, moving to Bulgaria to look where the roses come from, staying in the south of France and knocking on every distillery door until someone said, yes, you can come and work here and do work experience.
You're persistent.
I was persistent, absolutely. Well, it was a passion, and you have to follow passions in life. So I did that, and I kept working in the industry and increasing my skills in perfumery, and it got to a stage when Aveda heard about me, and I put my CV in with Aveda, and they asked me to come over and to try for position as perfumer. 8 years later, here I am.
That's awesome. Kate, did you take a similar path or a different path?
My path, I'd say, was a little bit more conventional. I went more through the educational route rather than traveling around. I actually came to perfumery from the world of science.
Okay.
Both of my parents are scientists. and they study color vision, which is how people see colors.
Oh, interesting.
Growing up, I was always really aware of the five senses. We talked about that a lot in my family. And my parents were also thinking about color all the time. They were very artistic people, and they really encouraged me to follow my curiosity. So I actually thought that I wanted to be a scientist too. When you grow up with both your parents being scientists, you kind of think that's like what you have to do.
It's your natural path.
Yeah.
Or not.
Right. So I studied chemistry. I went to university, and about midway through, as I was getting my chemistry degree, I realized that's not really what I wanted to be doing with my life. I didn't really want to be doing just straight up chemistry. So I was a little bit lost. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and my mom bought me a book about the chemistry of scents, the chemistry of perfume.
Oh, interesting.
And as soon as I read that book, I thought, wow, this is something where I haven't just worked for the past, 3 years. I was 1 year away from getting a chemistry degree. I haven't just worked for 3 years for nothing, that I'm going to have to go back to square one. This is something where chemistry is important. It kind of is a blend of art and science. So it really clicked with me, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So after I got my degree, I stuck it out for that last year.
You're so close.
Yeah. I got accepted into a perfumery school, one of the only perfumery schools in the world. It's in France, and I did a 2-year perfumery program. And then after I completed that, I worked in the industry for about a year before the job opened up at Aveda.
In Europe? Did you stay in Europe after your 2-year
Yes.
program?
So actually the first year of the program was in France. The second year of the program was in Italy. And then I did an internship in Munich, Germany.
Oh, wow.
So I lived in Europe for a little while, but I'm originally from Wisconsin. So it was nice to come back to my Midwestern roots.
Awesome. Do both of you currently have a favorite smell, whether it's an Aveda product or just something you find in nature that you always enjoy when you smell it? You're just like, I love that smell.
I'd like to say that I like all smells, but
I wouldn't believe you.
yeah, I don't know. I oscillate between it because I love every type of smell and the fascination of it, whether it's just the burnt Macaptown notes of coffee and walking into a particular cafe or coffee shop where it has that particular note. And I go, oh, I can smell that thiazole, that Macaptown, whatever. And I love the fascination of that, so I get swept away in it. But the real emotional connection to me is orange blossom.
Really?
Narrowly. The flowers from the citrus trees, whether it be orange or lemon, grapefruit, the smell of southern Italy with the orange blossoms in full bloom.
Sounds awful.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I really am drawn to things which have an orange flower or a narrowly note.
How about you, Kate? Do you have a favorite smell?
I'm particularly drawn to the smells of flowers. So right now we just had lilacs blooming. I love the smell of the lilacs. We had some outside on the border of the parking lot here in Blaine, which was really nice. I also love the smell of orange blossom. My grandma is from California, and that smell reminds me of going and visiting her. And I also love the smell of roses, fresh roses blooming, or peonies, which are also in bloom now. I really love the smell of different flowers.
I think not many people may know that it's super interesting that we have you two here, and that alone is really unique. And I'd like to hear your perspective on what makes Aveda unique.
One thing, as you said, we have in-house perfumers. A lot of people don't quite realize how special that is because people who aren't in the industry don't quite realize that most beauty companies that are creating beauty products, including fragrances, the fragrances aren't created by perfumers that work in-house. The fragrances are actually created by what are called fragrance houses, which are specialized companies that create fragrances. So a fragrance house might make the fragrances for many different brands, many different types of fragrances, many different applications.
Interesting.
So very, very, very few beauty companies, and especially in hair care. I don't think there's any other hair care brands that have an in-house perfumer. So we're very special in that way. Also, we talked about the fact that Guy and I call ourselves Pure-Fumers. We're referred to as Pure-Fumers, and we call our fragrances, we call them aromas rather than fragrances. And that's to differentiate between our aromas and fragrances that you see coming out of other brands, which are more synthetic. Ours are natural. They're pure. They're natural, naturally derived. So that's why we call them aromas as opposed to fragrances.
How have our historic aromas been passed down to you from your predecessor or previous teams? And how has the history of Smell Like Aveda been passed down through generations, really?
Yeah, well, first of all, when I worked in Australia in aromatherapy businesses that I worked out there, one of which was associated with the Australian distributor of Aveda.
Oh, interesting.
And so it was in the same building. So I got to know a lot about Aveda products. Well, I saw them. And I got to use them here and there. So I knew what they are. So here I was practicing my perfumery, studying essential oils and everything to do about aroma and essential oil chemistry. And then I saw these products and said, how did this guy make these? And I looked at it was Koichi Shiozawa, fabulous perfumer. And I effectively studied his technique before I even got here. And this is 10, 15 years before I turned up here. So I always knew of his work and always knew of the style. And then I got to a stage where I came and worked with him. So we had about 2 years transfer of knowledge.
Okay,
where I
so
worked
you worked together for 2 years. Wow.
Worked with Koichi and went through not so much the structure of it, but what he tried to intend to produce out of that.
More of his artistic imprint in the product or the aroma.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that was a fabulous time. We're two different personalities.
Sure.
These two different people who were put together to say, okay, you're going to take over when Koichi retired. He'd been here for 20, 22 years and had such a wonderful legacy of work. And I was scared of this, a little bit intimidated.
No pressure.
No, not at all. So it was not an easy process. So we forced our way through it. But hopefully I got his vision of what his work has been. And then I've instilled it into Cage. We've talked about, he was very much into, I'm getting technical here, into the top notes. So you'll get a spearmint top note on top of the men's composition, for example, or the men's aroma. So we talked about how he put things together and the structure, and I've tried to take some of that and evolve it and using my own personal inputs as well.
Let's say we're going to develop a new product, a new shampoo. How is the information of what we want the shampoo to smell like actually given to you, and how much freedom are you given to create whatever smells you want? How do the teams provide you aroma inspiration, and what do you do with that after you receive the inspiration?
Yeah, well, I tend to work with partners here in a broad sense. Okay. We might say this shampoo needs to be a herbal floral, and I try to have that as a broad sense rather than someone dictating to me saying this needs to have rose as the floral, this needs to be the rosemary as the herbal component. So I don't particularly want that. I want to try and get the emotional feel of what the emotion of the product, because let's face it, smell is so important with emotions.
Yes.
And cosmetics are important for emotions. We're selling emotions in some senses. We talk about the emotion of what that end product's trying to do, and then we allow our artistic endeavours to take over from there. So there's a lot of our own input into the end product rather than it to be dictated, which is really quite different to the rest of the industry too, I must say.
Right, and I know sometimes I visited your aroma lab and you'll have visual mood boards up, which I found fascinating, that you can take beautiful pictures and then through your artistic and scientific abilities you can transpose that imagery into an aroma. And how do you use imagery to inspire what you create in the aroma lab?
I think pictorially, and I often communicate pictorially. If anyone's been in a meeting, they'll say, oh no, he's broken out the pad and the pens, he's going to draw things. So I like to draw to articulate myself. And olfactorily, that's good, because what we're doing is I try to make aromas for Aveda that have this emotional effect. They're not clear, simple visions of each raw material. They're a combination, almost like a bouquet. And so that creates emotion. Say if I wanted to have something that's calming, I pictorially would choose a picture that is a calming scene. It may be a pond with a boat floating upon it, or a tree with a gentle breeze. You can see the moving of the leaves. It's not that I want to have the smell of the tree or the smell of the leaves, but if I imagine oneself at that place, it's a very calming place. So the emotion of the picture, and we have really good photographers and movie makers in our company, and I can draw on that stuff as well to say the emotion of what they're delivered I can try and do that aromatically, if that makes sense.
It does. You are in such an interesting role in an industry because obviously you're scientists, but I almost consider you more artists in a way, because you can take this feeling, desired outcome of a feeling that you want a guest to have, and you can make that into this really scientific aroma that people don't know is super scientific and really artistically blended together. It just smells good or smells like Aveda, but there's so much more behind it, and that's what I think is fascinating about your roles.
Yeah, it's because it's not all just science.
Right.
I want to lay that down very clearly, that what we do, I consider myself more of an artist than a scientist. We do things in a scientific rigor, and Kate, you can speak to that, but she's really good at it as well. But what drives us is artistic passion. It's the art of pure flower and plant essences, and rather than just the science.
Yeah, I think the art comes first for me too. That's the most important thing, is getting something that smells good, that smells nice, and that conveys a certain emotion, even though the science is extremely important. But the artistic part is, to me, more interesting.
Yeah, and that's the difference between art and design and science. Good design is functional, but art is emotionally impactful.
Absolutely.
And intellectually stimulating as well. So you need that intellectually stimulating and emotional connection to make a really good product. You can have a fine fragrance, fine perfume that you enjoy in the shower. That's great. But does it drive you to use it day in, day out? And to me, that's the artistic connection. That's the emotional drive. My goal is to connect or capture that.
Kate, do you have any products that stand out to you where you kind of were told, like, this product needs to perform X, Y, or Z, and then you were thinking, how on earth are we going to make that into an aroma?
The texture tonic.
Right.
Yeah.
What the heck is texture supposed to smell like?
Yeah. That one was really kind of complicated, because also when you think of other texture sprays on the market, they are quite literal, I think. Like, you want beachy hair? This product smells like the beach. And we don't have aroma molecules in our palette that smell like the beach, so we can't go there, and we wouldn't really want to go there necessarily. We ended up doing something that's quite spicy and balsamic, and it's sort of a complex aroma that has these different parts that kind of connotes texture.
Yeah, it's full. It had a fullness to it, so it gives the texture, and the parts where the partitions in the hair, the texture came through from the aromatic parts itself. So Kate did a fabulous job in that formulation, and it's done very, very well.
I like that product a lot, and I think it smells amazing. Are you most proud of a certain product that you've helped make the aroma for? Like, what's your favorite aroma that you've created for in a product? And Kate, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
The first thing that we were working on when I came to Aveda were the Candrema products.
Oh, one of my favorites.
And so those have a special spot in my heart. Guy's the one who created the aromas for those, but I helped with those, and those were the first things that we were kind of working on when I got here, and those to me smell fantastic. And then the texture tonic is the first aroma that I created for a product that went to the market. So that also has a special place in my heart.
Absolutely. How about you, Guy?
The Botanical Kinetic Soft and Rich Cream. It's a skincare product that had this great moisturizing capacity and beautiful texture, as the name suggests. And the aromatic presentation for that meant that I wanted to draw on ingredients that are well known, I'd say, aromatically for in aromatherapy fields, especially to help with skincare. So rose, olibanum, which is also known as frankincense. But I wanted to make sure it was really soft and had this moisture, almost dew on the petals of a rose, have that water connotation to it. And that gives the extra moisture and softness to the formula. So it's a long, complex formulation, went through a lot of iterations, the time in which I was working with Koichi, so that has a great emotional connection with me.
I remember when I was little, my great-grandma had this lotion in her bathroom, and it smelled like roses. And now, even in adulthood, every time I smell roses, I immediately think of my great-grandma. So I want to kind of ground the conversation in what was your first aroma memory? And I'm going to start with you, Kate.
I don't know that I have a clearly defined first aroma memory, but I do remember I loved playing in the backyard growing up. And one of my favorite things about playing in the backyard was all of the different scents. So we had lilacs back there, we had peonies. My parents always used the cedar mulch, the scent of the cut grass. And one of my favorite games that I used to play by myself was making potions. So I would collect all of these different things from nature and I would crush them up and mix them with water to make these perfumes or potions. So that's one of my very first aroma memories, is doing that, spending time in the backyard with all these smells of nature.
Similarly to me, I have a nature association. It wasn't a constructed aroma memory as my first memory, but it was the smell of turned earth. When I was a child, we used to go to the same campground every year. My family used to go to the same camping area. It was up on the Murray River and the border between Victoria and New South Wales, and we go stay on this beach and pitch a tent and stay at this campground. Now, invariably there was bad weather, and so my father used to dig a trench around the outside of the tent to try and channel any water that used to come down from the rain. So the smell of the turned earth, and I must have been very young, I must have been crawling. The smell of that turned earth and the clay soil of that area is an instant, just like you were saying with your grandmother on the rose, it's an instant spot in my life. And I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I know that the shoes or the sandals or whatever I was wearing were really, really small. So I imagine probably about 2, 3. And so the smell of that combined with the smell of the eucalyptus and the wood smells of the Australian forest, the Australian bush, is my first aromatic memories.
I'm wondering, like, a good chef could take an aioli and say there's mayonnaise and garlic and basil and in this aioli, and they can kind of pick it apart from the whole. Can you guys take something that smells amazing and is obviously a blend of a lot of different ingredients and pick it apart and say there's rosemary or there's geranium in it? And do you find yourself doing that?
And that's perfumery skill. And that's the training.
It's very hard.
Yeah, it sounds
it's very difficult.
How many materials did you study at SIPCA? 1,000 or something?
Yeah, we studied thousands of raw materials, and we studied
like a sommelier. Your version of a sommelier.
Yeah,
wow.
Like a classical perfumery palette contains thousands of raw materials.
3,000 easily.
Yeah. So there's
I had no idea.
many raw materials. It is quite fun to smell things and try and pick them apart. But smelling things in blends is very, very difficult.
This is what I test Kate with.
Even simple blends. It's really difficult. Yeah, we do. We
Sniff
practice.
This. What's in it?
Yeah.
It is. It's true. It's exactly what it is. That's what we do. And having those discriminatory powers as a perfumer is a skill. And I wouldn't say that I am very, very good at it. I know some people who just are amazing. They smell one thing and then can reel off 20 ingredients right down to the molecular level and can tell you what's in it.
That's
There's
crazy.
2 ways you do that. First of all, you have a very good sense of smell, having this, as I said, discretionary capability. But the second part is you've done it before. If someone's made a good, let's say a fougere, which is a traditional fern-like smell in perfumery, they've made it before and they've put that formula together and they know what it smells like.
So they've logged the memory.
Log that back in your memory, and then they say, oh, well, there's a little bit of oak moss in here and lavender and this, and you've got 4% oak moss.
Oh, my gosh.
And it sounds really wonderful, but it's actually just a perfumery trick, like a magician, because they've created and they're just remembering their formula from years ago. So there's that. But no, we definitely go through that. We have smelling exercises in the morning. I'd like to do it around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning when the sense of smell is really fresh.
Why is the sense of smell fresh at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning?
It's after breakfast and it's before lunch.
Oh, okay.
So it's to do with gustatory and saliva production and your hunger and your biorhythms. So that's a good time to smell things, I think. And I remember that from my brewing days. It was the best time to drink beer, was at about 10 o'clock in the morning.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. And so we smell these things, and it's a blind test. Write the name of something on the back of a strip, you turn it upside down, you don't know what it is, you pick it up and smell it, and you have to describe it. And it's either an aroma or a single ingredient, and often with essential oils, Essential oils are multi-component mixtures. They're not just one chemical. There's hundreds of chemicals that make up an essential oil, naturally made, of course, by the plant. And so being able to pick out those different nuances, those different chemicals, is really important. So that's a skill that we train, just like a sprinter would use weight training to train their muscles. We do this blind exercise to try and train our nose.
That's interesting.
Or brain.
It's a skill I wish I had.
You smell with your brain. You don't actually smell with your nose, because you lock all these memories away.
One of the interesting things I think about working here is that I can put an aroma on myself, and you can put the same aroma on your body, and yet it smells completely different to both us and others smelling us. So what is going on there? Why does an aroma smell different on me than it does on you?
I think that it has to do with your body chemistry and heat. So your body chemistry, you have your own specific smell that's dependent on your genetics and your personal habits, like what kinds of foods you tend to eat. If you like to eat a lot of really spicy foods or really bland foods, it can affect the way that you smell. And so any aroma that you put on your skin will blend with your own natural smell, and that will give it sort of a unique fingerprint. Then also, people who have certain skin types and certain body temperatures, that will affect the evaporation of the aroma. So aromas are made up of molecules that are different sizes, and the little molecules evaporate more quickly, and the bigger molecules tend to evaporate more slowly. That's a bit of a simplification, but
thank you.
In general, that's how it works. So people who have oilier skins might find that aroma lasts longer because the oil helps keep the aroma on the skin, whereas people who have drier skins, they might find that the aroma evaporates more quickly. And if you tend to be a person who's really hot all the time, the top notes, those really small molecules that evaporate really quickly, they'll probably evaporate extra quickly on your skin. And so when you smell something, when you smell an aroma, you'll be getting more of the middle and base notes, whereas someone who's a little bit cooler skinned would have more of those top notes sticking on their skin longer. So that's what I think causes the difference.
Interesting. Well, I like to end every conversation with 5 rapid-fire questions. The rules are you don't overthink it. You have to answer. We'll let Guy answer each question first, and then Kate give your answer. Favorite smell found in nature? Only one.
Cedarwood.
Orange blossom.
What's the most used app you have on your cell phone?
BBC News.
My messaging app.
Sweet or savory?
Savoury.
Sweet.
Oh, interesting.
Easily.
That's an interesting balance between you two. What's the best way for you to de-stress?
Play with my children.
Take a bath.
Nice. And finally, what's your favorite Aveda product?
Men's Firm Hold Gel.
I love the brilliant humectant pomade.
That's interesting.
My mom used that product. So that's a memory of her.
Well, I believe you both will be at Congress, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So if people want to learn more about aroma or Aveda's aromas, they can come check out your booth or come learn more from you both at Congress?
I don't think I'll have a booth.
Okay.
We probably won't have a booth. We'll have an aromatic components throughout.
Ooh, even
so
better.
They're going to have to chase us down, I think.
Awesome. Well, this has been really fun, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope the conversation continues. Aroma's a big topic.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
This has been fun. I could talk about aroma all day. But yeah.
We'll just have to have you back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
As we continue to tell our stories, I would like to hear from you. What topics would you find interesting? Who would you like to hear from? Let me know by emailing me at avedaartists@aveda.com. Oh, and one more thing. I hope you're all planning to come to Congress in October of 2018. Hope to see you there.